My gosh.
All right, sorry, I got everybody up and then Alabama happened. So we're about to start this meeting of the Sumner County Board of Education. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence. And in my moment of silence, I'm going to really be remembering the Hawkins family tonight. And after the moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance to our country's flag, and anyone who would like to join me, please feel free to do so.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda, as usual, Mr. Johnson, do we have the roll?
Yes, sir.
Looks like everybody's here except Mr. Hawkins, of course. Next item on the agenda is adoption of regular agenda. Is there a motion?
And a second.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Wise, I believe. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is adoption of consent agenda. Is there a motion? So moved by Ms. Hayes, second by Ms. Bachman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes, discussion interaction of minutes for November 19th, 2019. Motion to approve by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, we did have recognition of delegations and there's been a conflict scheduling, so we're going to strike that from the agenda tonight and move on to matters involving council, which I'm assuming we have none.
None.
I like it. Reports from the director.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Hope you guys have a great one. Ribbon cutting. So I think these are at your places. So hopefully you can join us. We're going to do both those back to back. Gene Brown Elementary School that morning at 9 o'clock on December 17th. I guess that's next Tuesday. No, 2 Tuesdays. Anyway, 2 Tuesdays, 2 weeks from today on the 17th. 9 o'clock Gene Brown, 11 o'clock George Whitten. So hopefully you can make it. If you can, come on and enjoy visiting with the principals and look at all the renovations and things that are happening on those campuses. They really both look really good. And for those of you that were in those buildings prior to the renovations and additions, and you'll be able to tell a huge, huge, huge difference. Like all the ones that we've done, but those were a lot of portables at Whitten that we've gotten rid of. And then Gene Brown's kind of just, one of our older schools, and so the facelift there really helped. So hopefully you can make it out. We'd love to have you.
Question. Do we have another luncheon in December? When?
On Monday.
When?
Monday,
Monday.
the 9th,
Night.
at 11 at Hunter.
Where?
Hunter?
All righty. Next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction regarding naming the gym floor at Beach High School. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Motion by Ms. Andrews.
Second.
Second by
Mr. Hunter?
Me.
Mr. Duncan. Yeah. You know your name. His name gets on my tongue and it just won't roll off sometimes. Mr. Duncan, is there any discussion?
I have a decision.
Seeing none?
No, I have a decision.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Andrews.
Yes, on this, I feel like I should apologize to the Scott family. This actually should have been on last month's agenda, and I dropped the ball on that. And so appreciate it being on this month. And I've spoken with Mr. Powell, or I've communicated with Mr. Powell, I've not spoken with him. But the floor is going to be named Boots Scott Gym. Is what they're going to name that. Which I think is a great honor for Mr. Scott. and they are wanting to do that on January the 21st, which happens to also be one of our board meeting nights. So, but it's also the Hendersonville game,
I
so
hope you guys will
it'll be a
do
great.
it.
Yes.
It looks really good. I was out there visiting with Kenny, 2 weeks ago? And they had just had the floor before the season started. They just had the floor painted. And of course, I went out on a limb and told Kenny, go ahead. I think the board will be okay with it. If they're not, we'll scratch it up and redo that section. But he redid the floor and they went ahead and painted all the light, did everything. It looks really good. And I know that'll be a big night. Be a big night out at the beach on the 21st of January when they actually have Boots family out there. And I know they're looking forward to that.
I've just got a quick question for clarification. I noticed you said Boots Court Gym. Is it Boots Scott Court or Boots
Maybe
Scott
it's court.
Gym?
Boots court.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure.
It's actually Boots is in parentheses because that's what everybody calls him, but it has his actual first and last name. So yeah, it's court.
All right, any further discussion?
Correct, thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding the union calendar for
Motion to
2021.
approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, oh, Mr. Daniels, sorry.
Nope.
Oh, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding the approval of 2019-2020 textbook adoption committee. Mr. Langford.
Mine was Fahrenheit 451 or 541, I'm good with it.
Jeremy asked me to try to do about a 25 or 30-minute presentation, but I told him no, I won't do it. But we did want to give you all a little bit of an update and where we are. You know, we typically do this every year with a different slate of textbooks, but we're trying to think through a little bit of you know how we approach textbook adoption, and I think there we go. So you know, we're trying to tie in the way we do adoption in with our overall. If you remember last year, we began the process of rolling out ELA because we didn't want to wait another year. And so I wanted to start off, though, a little bit. We were at Union about a month ago, and I'll pass this around. This is a book that the third graders are reading called Giant Squid from the Smithsonian. And I think it's really important because Wit and Wisdom, the books are geared towards, you know, yes, towards literature, but also towards science, social studies, things that engage the kids at their interest level, but then get them to reading things. And so, Chris, I don't know if we can cue up this video. If not, it's going to be okay. All right, well, don't worry about it. I'll just tell you about it. So we went over to Union. They're reading this book about the giant squid. And Jean Hessen, if you ever met Jean, she's just a rock star teacher. And she convinced her sidekick that what they needed to do was dissect squids with their third graders. So they ordered off the internet, and the squids they got were quite squid smelling. And they kept it in the faculty refrigerator for like 8 or 10 days before they actually dissected them. But, you know, the part that was amazing to me is these children were, you know, it was great. Jean worked with Gallatin High School. She got some of the trays where they could do the dissection, borrowed tools. She did not let the third graders actually hold the scalpel. She wielded the scalpel at all times. But, you know, she said when they were training, her partner would frequently holler, "What have you gotten me into?" But they had a blast with it. And, you know, as a high school principal, it was amazing to me because I can't tell you the number of parent phone calls I had to deal with when we were dissecting owl pellets or, you know, frogs or, you know, whatever else, cats, whatever we were dissecting, about my daughter or my son can't handle this, da-da-da. So at one key moment, there's the little third grader that's always up in the front row raising his hand. He got the double name, truly Southern boy. Raises his hand. He goes, "Miss Hessen, I'm feeling a bit squeamish. And she looks at him and goes, come on, Drama Llama, we got too much to do. And he goes, yes, ma'am. And they stayed engaged and finished the dissection. I was like, I never had Drama Llama in my vocabulary. So it worked really well for Gene. But I think it's, if you follow on Twitter, if you follow my page or the instruction page, we're starting to catch a lot of the work that's being done in our schools. And it's really, really remarkable how kids are getting engaged. Like they're reading about Galileo now. And there's all this work that's being done of children wanting to make telescopes or looking at the stars. It's such a powerful thing. And, one of the things as we've studied this is a quote, Baltimore City has done a lot of work investing in early childhood literacy, and they're seeing some huge gains with their kids. They've got a very challenging student demographic in terms of helping them learn to read. And so their CEO had this statement: if we don't provide teachers with that strong, foundational, rigorous, content-rich curriculum, then we're making their jobs 10, 20, 100 times harder than they need to be. And it mimics what we found. Last year, my first year, when we go through every September, we go through strategic planning with our principals. And Dr. Phillips, I think we were about 13 or 14 in, and every one of our elementary principals had said, we've got to have some resources. And he turned and looked at me and said, I want us to have a third grade curriculum. If you remember, this is where we started the process of wit and wisdom. And we did it last year, second semester, with our third graders across the county. Very well received. And if you remember last year we did our budget, we went ahead and went second grade through fifth grade with wit and wisdom. Now we're ready because here's what we heard a lot from our principals is our teachers are drowning in the work. In addition to rigorous assessments, standards, all the things that we want them focusing on, one of the things I hadn't thought about is they're having to look at a text and ask, is it qualitatively at the right level? Is it quantitatively at the right level? Does it match where our readers are? And the problem is in addition to the stress that it put on our educator, our teachers to find those texts, our principals, you weren't just going in to observe a lesson, you're having to go in and try to assess on the fly whether the text was at the right level. Because if you go in and you see a lesson and it's well taught, but it's on a first grade level instead of a third grade level, then our kids aren't going to get to where they need to be at the end of the year. So it's helped our principals when they go in to do observations to know that what they're seeing is at the right level, so then they can help work with the teacher on the delivery of the lesson and things like that, which principals really prefer to do as opposed to trying to sit there with a chart and figure out how complex the text is. I'm going to turn it over to Christy now to talk about a few of the things from her realm.
Okay, so to capture some of the work that we've spent a lot of time developing and really honing in on with a core leadership team that we've utilized for all of our ELA work for K through 12, we've developed three major core beliefs involving our students are capable of achieving. We know that they're able and capable of achieving at acceleratingly high levels, and that our teachers are already working hard. So being able to provide the high quality curriculum sets that we'll look at here in a minute has drastically shifted how they're working and what they're working on as they're preparing lessons for students. Obviously, we realize that we need to make some shifts and do some things a little bit differently to enable and equip our students to make sure that they continue to succeed and achieve at high levels. And that, as Scott had mentioned, we've got to be patient through the process. Over the course of this year, we've learned a lot, we've experienced a lot, we've shared a lot, but this is a journey. It won't be automatically correct the first go-round, but we've got to be patient with the process and not settle until our students are successful. Also, just acknowledging that curriculum and materials by themselves will not necessarily be the silver bullet that makes our kids achieve and succeed exceedingly and abundantly well, but it's coupled with great instruction and also very intentional and thorough support. So when we're looking at the high quality curriculum sets that are in circulation, that are in our classrooms across the district now, in kindergarten and in first grade, our teachers are using Read to Be Ready. Those are unit starters. They're not complete curriculum sets, but it has provided a foundational level of high quality curriculum in terms of starting points for both of those grade levels. As Scott had mentioned, we have in grades 2 through 5 Wit and Wisdom, and as you can see, the book sample making its way around, and like we had discussed with a squid dissection in 3rd grade. We think that that's pretty phenomenal work for our younger students to already be partaking in. And then Learn Zillion guidebooks are in 6th grade and in 9th grade. Last month, when you all were in, we provided those 2 copies of Fahrenheit 451, which I've heard someone has read, and maybe a couple of others of you as well. And then also The Witch of Blackbird Pond. Those are sample books and units that our 6th and 9th grade teams are going through with their students. Throughout the course of our summer orders and our work with the different curriculum sets, we have infiltrated the district with over 150,000 books in classrooms, which we think is pretty phenomenal to ensure that we have high quality materials in all of these areas. So you can see the picture of the giant squid and then the 2 books that you all have copies of. So in terms of supporting at the district level, you know, obviously we've got 30,036 kids. That's a lot of sweet little minds that are in our charge and our care to ensure that they grow and learn appropriately. So as we've worked through systemically supporting our teachers and our leaders with the work centered around ELA, we have developed kind of a framework that encompasses our school cultures, which is our strategic element, our instructional plan, training, and coaching, and then also the involvement of our leadership at our school level, and then also from central office. So in terms of our cultural support, you know, we want to ensure that high quality materials are in every classroom. That is our goal. We're not quite there, but we've laid the groundwork this year, leading up to the textbook adoption and going into a formal adoption year. And also really honoring the fact that all means all. So we've worked really closely with our special ed department, our EL coordinator, our Title I programming to ensure that there's no subset of student or school that is left out of the equation as we're talking about the use of the materials, and also ensuring that there's scaffolds and supports at every appropriate level. In terms of the core pillar of our instructional plan, training, and coaching approach, we have solicited teacher feedback over the course of this year several times. We actually have a survey that's live right now where our teachers are providing feedback about the curriculum that they're using now, offering input, suggestions, you know, aha moments, big takeaways with what they're experiencing in the classroom with the use of the material. And we do this every quarter. So teachers are ongoingly letting us know like how things are working in the classroom, if they have recommendations or if they have specific needs. So when we're reviewing that ongoingly, we can adjust as needed, which has been really helpful. And we'll look at some of the statistics here in a second. Also, just the commitment of time spent on curriculum study rather than the teacher's time being spent on collecting resources and materials to use for instruction. We've kind of leveled the playing field with the use of a common curriculum set. Also, added emphasis on student work, which we'll get to here in just a minute. And then we also use a tool to provide feedback to teachers, the IPG walkthrough tool. It's just a tool that's utilized to offer teacher feedback based upon walkthroughs, 10 to 15 minutes spent in classrooms. And so teachers can be ongoingly provided with feedback or given questions about the use of the curriculum and how things are going in their classroom. And then the last pillar is the involvement of leadership. You know, my counterpart, Dr. Holt, he works closely with our administrative team and to ensure that they're doing, you know, all of the work that the teachers are, so they have a high level of familiarity with the curriculum that's in circulation right now. So we've got some walkthrough rounds that are scheduled together. Our assistant principals and principals are visiting each other's buildings ongoingly and walking classrooms together. We've really seen a shift in some very collaborative, kind of open door, open observation walkthroughs where we've got high school principals going in and looking at elementary classrooms. We've got middle school principals that are working with high schools as well as elementary. So we've really dispelled the myth of stay in your grade level band, because we have seen some amazing things happening at all 3 levels that it's just too good not to share. Our own best resources are in our own system and in our own schools. And then also just a shift to observation feedback. The quantity of time that our leaders and our lead educators, our instructional coaches, are spending in classrooms has catapulted through the moon. I mean, we've we've spent more face-to-face time in classrooms focused on instruction than we have in years past, because we have a structure where that's a goal every single day, that we're in classrooms and involved in the learning environment. You can look at this quick table. We won't go too far into detail, but this is some of the teacher requested support and feedback that was collected through the first quarter survey, with where they would like additional supports after their first quarter of instruction with the curriculum in use. And it's separated by the curriculum sets, but ultimately collaborative planning, and then some of the student learning expectations, making sure that some of that is a little bit more clear, were some supports that they had requested. But then also just time being able to spend together with one another and work through the new curriculum as they're getting more familiar. They'd like to do that with within teacher groups, which we immediately responded to, and we're able to provide training sessions and planning opportunities for them to come together outside of their buildings and convene and work through some of the curriculum study elements.
Christine,
Ma'am.
I know Jeremy's not going to like you asking the question, but
ask away.
what do these, well, first question, Read to Be Ready is an app. Are there apps for these other, I've got a Read to Be Ready app. Mm-hmm. Do they have apps for Wit and Wisdom and?
They have electronic access. I don't know if it's necessarily an app shortcut, but if you're interested in getting into the curriculum, we would be more than happy to provide insight and availability to do so.
Percentages, I'm taking in a lot as you're talking.
Yes.
These percentages mean what?
So the percentages,
Requested support.
that's a great question. So based upon the teacher feedback, out of the thing, if they ranked the different things that they wanted particular support in, these are the percentages based upon the feedback that we received. So the heavier emphasis areas are the quantities of teachers that chose, within, Wit and Wisdom. We know that that's only 2nd through 5th grade, and we're looking at a continuum of 21% of the respondents wanted help with looking at student exemplars.
So what it lets us do is instead of waiting to the end of the year or to strategic planning next year, it lets us get some immediate feedback, so then we can turn things around and try to shift the ship a little bit instead of waiting until we're, and provide the supports that our teachers are asking for.
Good. Purpose. Thanks.
You saw one.
Okay. So getting on to the exciting stuff. So the student work. So these are 2 work samples from Read to Be Ready. Again, coming out of a 1st grade classroom, specifically with the Davy Crockett, Elvis Presley, and Dolly Parton unit. It all focused on Tennessee history. So fortunately enough, we'll see in another couple of pictures, I happen to have a 1st grade kiddo that came home with this exact graphic organizer with the artwork, and an immediate fascination in wanting to watch YouTube videos of Elvis Presley because they had listened to it in class. So, putting it all together and realizing that there was a heightened level of excitement over these Tennessee historical figures based upon all of the readings that they had done coming out of the unit starters for Read to Be Ready. So, and then you can see the other piece of artwork also coming out of Read to Be Ready, one of the units. These are some pictures that we had pulled that had been shared with us through Twitter from Union as they were working on the Nez Perce Indian unit. In one of the pictures, you can see that they're carving arrowheads to show how they were using resources available to survive. So again, deeply embedded in science and social studies learning, but high levels of engagement for our younger learners. Here's another cross section. You can see the larger picture was a norming session at Guild Elementary. There was a team of about 6 or 7 of us that were I believe we were in a 3rd grade classroom in Mr. Sawyer's building at Guild. Also, just captions of the student work. I think the emphasis of the student work and teachers sharing their students' work with us and on Twitter has really heightened the productivity of the things that the kids are learning, and also just really displaying and honoring and kind of upholding the work of the kids, which has been really fascinating to watch along. Bottom right-hand picture is a picture at White House High School. Miss Denton, she's a 9th grade teacher, and they were working through Romeo and Juliet, which is the first unit that they worked through towards the beginning of this semester. And then here are a couple other pictures. The larger picture in the background was a 4th grade teacher at Station Camp Elementary. We were doing rounds. She had all kinds of flexible seating, but the kids were so engaged in the work. It was fascinating to be a part of that. Bottom picture, a picture at, I believe that was actually Miss Hessen's classroom. They had their testing folders up. They were doing a vocabulary test before they got into the reading for the day. And then I'll own the Child in the Braves shirt. I did take a shameless picture of my own kid. With his work outside of his classroom on parent-teacher conference day. He was really proud of some of the work that he had put together based upon what they had been working on. So just some really exciting things for our kids, and exciting emphasis and focus on ensuring that our ELA instruction is top-notch. The best thing that we can do for our kids is afford them and give them the opportunity to read. Being able to read and perform at high levels opens every other door and every other opportunity that we could hope to imagine for all of our Sumner County kids.
Thank you, Christy. Dr. Holt would have been here tonight, but his wife had her, she'd have her appendix removed on Sunday. So if you'll keep the Holt family in she's doing well, but they have a 20-month-old baby and an exciting household. So we want to keep them in our thoughts. We actually did this modification, this presentation at the LEAD conference, and we've had a lot of school districts wanting to come see exactly what we're doing. And one of the features, in addition, we're trying to move the whole ship together, like not just buying. Used to, when we did textbook adoptions, in most places I've been, like in Atlanta and other places, is like big box trucks show up with a lot of books and they unload them in front of the school, and then by magic. Now we've done a lot more work here in Sumner County, but one of the things that hasn't happened historically is moving administrators and teachers and everybody, coaches, everybody together. And so one of the things that we've really been trying to drill down on is getting principals, assistant principals, coordinators, lead educators, all working together in each other's building to support each other. And so like Christy mentioned, the IPG tool, it's a walkthrough tool to focus on ELA, English reading instruction. We've had over 400 entered on our Google Doc, and it lets us kind of track where we are and what we're seeing, and then provide feedback to our leaders so they know not only what they're seeing when they're in classrooms, but what's happening across the district. And that's something that we've really focused on this year. And the 400 is just ELA classrooms. It's not counting all the other observations that they're doing. I talked to a principal last week, and they were in 14 classrooms one day, just doing 10 or 15-minute observations, trying to see what's going on and start conversations with teachers. To move a little bit more specifically into textbook, when we make these textbook decisions, it ties into all the other stuff that we're doing, and it reinforces, in fact, like the high quality textbooks and curriculum are essential to what we're trying to do to provide teachers what they need so that they don't have to spend hours on the internet, on Pinterest and Teacher Pay Teacher and other things where you don't necessarily get the highest quality materials. But if you don't provide those to our if we don't provide those to our teachers, then we leave them to that world. So just some textbook committee philosophies we had as we chose the team this year. Represents the geographic landscape of the district. It's made up of teachers, principals, assistant principals, lead educators, and coordinators. Also includes special ed teachers and leadership, along with English language learners, teachers, and leaderships. We're now over 1,000 English language learner students. It's going to continue to grow. And so we need to make sure, because our EL teachers, when they pull kids out, they're pulling across multiple grades, and it's really helpful if they're working through the same things that they're working on when they're in their mainstream English classroom. So we want to make sure that we provide them the training and support so they know what's going on and they're not siloed off. Reinforces our belief that all means all, and then follows all the state law and requirements from TDOE. It's a little bit of a change. In the past, we haven't really included principals, assistant principals, lead educators on textbook adoption committees. But what we wanted to do is everybody be able, we've kept it roughly half or a little bit over half with teachers, but we wanted to keep people that are engaged in the work hands-on, working together, communicating, making the best choices from different perspectives to see what we need to do when we adopt ELA textbooks. Next steps. Tonight we should approve our textbook committee teams, and then we plan to have 2 half-day meetings in January with our teams to prepare for adoption. January 31st, we have an opportunity. I'll send out, when we get everything finalized, I'll send you an invitation. Natalie Wexler is a national leader on what it means to have foundational literacy, like in K2, and focus not just, for a long time we had a philosophy in education across the country of kindergarten through 2nd grade, you learn to read, and then 3rd grade through 5th grade, you read to learn. The problem with it is we give up too much opportunity for kids to learn basic content knowledge. Like, for instance, Christy mentioned, kids learning basic Tennessee history and knowing things about their area and being engaged in science. Kids are hungry for that, and we want to provide them the content knowledge. And so she's a national expert that we're going to hopefully get on January 31st that we'd like to involve our textbook committees in to hear kind of the national debate about what's going on in foundational literacy. February 11th is the big textbook caravan day. I love this because all the vendors think that Jamie York is in charge of it. And I treat it like lieutenants in Vietnam. Like, I tell all my people, don't y'all, anybody tell them that I have a title. Like, let them think that Jamie's in charge, because it's great, because vendors are vendors. But we'll have every textbook known to man in the gym. You're more than welcome to come and walk around and look. The textbook committees will be spending time at each of the presentations and rank ordering them. We're going to have some rules, like which ones we can actually technically adopt. We want to make sure that they meet our standards, and because there are some on there, the state did a pretty good job of screening out the weaker ones, but there are a few on there that don't score real high on national level evaluations, and we want to make sure that we steer clear of those. March 2nd through 6th is the week that we'll have the ELA textbook review week, where they'll be available for parents to come in. We want to do this year, March 3rd is the stockpile day. We want to take time in the afternoon to be available to answer questions from the public, from parents, or anything like that, where we'll have textbook committee members, myself, Christy, Phillip, a group, to answer any questions that parents, community members might have about the curriculum choices. And then March 10th, March 24th, we'll have a study session and board meeting. And that's it. You've got a list in your documents. You've got a list of the textbook committee members. We broke it down into K1 because we've got 2nd through 5th grade wit and wisdom. If you noticed, 3rd through 5th, we've got a K1, 3 through 5. 2nd grade's not on there. 2nd grade, because we've already purchased wit and wisdom, what we will do is go through with the state and apply for a waiver for 2nd grade, because wit and wisdom, the state required for K2 to have a strong foundational literacy component. Wit and wisdom didn't see any sense in them developing that, because there are a lot of opportunities that districts have already purchased into for foundational literacy. So wit and wisdom in the earliest grades has to sit alongside another foundational literacy program. So what we will do is we'll build out supports. Most of the foundational literacy skills we're taught in kindergarten and 1st grade, we'll build that out for 2nd grade to support what we've already purchased for wit and wisdom. I've already talked to wit and wisdom. They'll match the pricing for that the state's giving grades 3 through 5. They'll match that for 2nd grade for us, so it'll cost the same as whatever we decide to purchase in grades 3 through 5. So we'll have a textbook adoption committee for K1, for 3 through 5, and then secondary, we'll have a 6 through 8 committee, or 6 through 8 slate and a 9 through 12 slate. They'll sit together because we want to move 6 through 12 together on a curriculum choice, so we don't like restart and miss things. But that's kind of the backdrop of the textbook committees, if y'all have any questions.
Ms. Andrews.
Yes.
By the way, I did, like Mr. Wise, we gave him a verbal quiz. He got 100 on both books. So he is. I know there were some doubters when he said he'd read both books, but he got 100 on both quizzes. I just want to let everybody know.
Congratulations. First, thank you for the presentation. It was great, and I think, at least since I've been on the board, the first time we've had it kind of laid out that way, so that's good. Couple of questions. One is just off the top of my head, when we were talking about the question and answer for parents when we do that, can we consider doing a Facebook Live on that, where maybe they go ahead, like we announce it that it's coming, and let them go ahead and send in their questions, so that we're not answering maybe off the cuff. But I know there's a lot of parents who it's difficult for them to come.
Right.
But I think that would be great, and then they could even go back and watch it and just see what some of those questions were.
Sure. With
Ms. Flood, maybe get that set up. I think
sure.
that would be.
I realize that I'm a curriculum nerd, but it's exciting.
You're just a nerd.
That we're getting. I mean, the fact. I mean, it makes me happy that we put 150,000 books in the hands of kids in this last year.
Yeah. But I just know, as parents
Something
have
for us to celebrate.
questions, I think
Yeah.
it shows an effort on our part,
Right.
to invite them in.
Yeah.
Additionally, on where you said that you've talked with the teachers and they're able to give feedback, do we know the percentage of teachers that are utilizing that? And when they utilize that, is that something that is anonymous or?
Yeah, it's anonymous.
Okay.
And then we're catching we're catching well above what you typically catch on a survey. I would say we're around probably 20-25% of the teachers responding. I think because we've sent out 2 surveys lately where we've taken their feedback and put it almost immediately into action. What I would suspect will happen through quarter 2 is the plan is to do these surveys each quarter, and then we meet and deliberate. I know there was a lot of talk among principals at principals meeting that they were excited. I don't think Mr. Powell would mind me saying he was really pleased. Says he enjoyed sitting K-12 and discussing and was excited about having a curriculum in 9th grade so he could talk to other principals in other buildings to see what they were seeing in their classroom. So I expect the percentages will go up because we've been able to kind of tweak and make changes based on the feedback that we receive from teachers.
And I think that's good for the board to know, especially knowing that it's anonymous, because I feel like speaking with teachers a lot of times they're hesitant on things like that because especially if it's going to be targeted back to them, they might not be as forthcoming. But I've spent a lot of time recently sitting down and having lunch at different schools and speaking with teachers and stuff, and so when they come to me, and there has been a lot of frustration this year. I've heard a lot of frustration from various teachers at various schools kind of continuously. So that would be easy for me to say, hey, you know what? When those surveys come out, you need to make sure that you are sharing that information because they are looking for that, and to let them, to let them know that it's anonymous, right. I think will help get the feedback.
Sure.
One of the slides said that teachers are drowning in work, and I feel like that's probably been the biggest feedback that I've gotten this year, is that specifically, I want to say like K-3-ish is probably the biggest group that have said it to me. Probably 1, 2, even higher percentage, but that the way in which they're having to take grades with that, is there any looking at how we're going to be adjusting that to make that workload easier?
We got some feedback from a couple of our principals about a month ago, and so about 3 weeks ago we went over to an elementary school and met with their grade level teams, and they came in and presented what they were inputting. With standards-based report cards, we worked really hard over the summer to get the front side that parents see where it communicates well, and I think we've accomplished that. But it always will get room to get better. But what happened was in that move is we got a little wonky on the number of grades that teachers were having to put in. So basically, right before Thanksgiving, we collected about 2 weeks ago after we met with those teachers, we put together a survey and surveyed teachers. We had huge participation in that survey. And so what we got there was a significant number of our teachers were spending a significant amount of time putting grades in. So what we have done is on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we sent out to teachers that K through 5, basically we reworked a number of grades they have to put in.
Okay.
So basically it's about, would you say like 30%, 35% of what they were putting in. So for instance, like in one grade level, what was going to be 78 grades drops to like 30.
Okay, great.
And so we've tried to really listen to that. And then, another thing that we had with our STEM schools was they needed more flexibility to enter in to connect in with their problem-based learning assignments. So we've given them the flexibility, the freedom to do that. So I feel like we've gotten to a pretty good point. We want to do that and then step back and see, like in about 4 or 5 weeks, we'll send out another survey, give time for this to take root with teachers, and then see, because I feel like some of the criticism that we got about the curriculum choices was connected more to the grading than it was to the curriculum.
Very much so to the grade. They were saying they were like, we've got one piece and we've got to get 10 grades from it, and so they were, and I could understand where that would be very overwhelming for them.
Oh, it was incredibly overwhelming, and hopefully we fixed that.
So my last question, I know we've kind of talked about it, but I need you to remind me, specifically K-1-2, pet peeve of mine specifically is I feel like we kind of have done a shift, that what fell through the cracks was writing and spelling. Is that part of within this reading curriculum too that we're going to look at to try to maybe go back, and because that's the other thing that kindergarten teachers have said is that they're having a hard time getting basics, the foundationals, even teaching them their letters
Yeah.
Which I would assume maybe some of the shifts you've done may help with that, but are we kind of getting back to maybe some of those basics to help reestablish
I
those
think with the
foundations?
decision that the committee will have to make, especially in that K1 group, is the direction we want to go. Read to be Ready is unit starters. The books are tremendous. The kids love them. I mean, you see the student work when you walk through an elementary school is great with what they're doing. But the question I think that we've got to ask is we can utilize, one option is to utilize those Read to be Ready resources in science and social studies in kindergarten and first grade, and then get a curriculum like Wit and Wisdom that will meet not just the literary needs, but also the foundational, the writing, the spelling, the phonics, the phonemic awareness, all the different components that go into. Interestingly, I've already looked at one of the curriculum that's really highly rated that a lot of powerhouse districts are using, and it has a huge emphasis on handwriting. And then it has, I think, like Tapping with Tiles is actually a really good resource for spelling, and I think it'll let us slide Tapping with Tiles into what it's meant to be, which is those aspects like spelling, and use it for some intervention, things like that. But I think the question the committee's going to have to address is instead of trying to do two implementations in K1 to hit the foundational part with the curricular part, would be to find a curriculum that hits both simultaneously, so then it's just one, and then we can use the books that are already familiar to our teachers and Read to be Ready and use those in science and social studies. That's one consideration. Otherwise, we'd have to, as Christy mentioned when she was talking, Read to be Ready is not a curriculum, it's unit starters, so there's still work that needs to be done to build that out to make it a full curriculum. So that's a question for the committee, really, I think. But yes, our plan is to, because what happens if we don't hit those foundational skills in kindergarten, first grade, it takes years to catch up.
Mr. Daniels.
I want to make a couple comments. A couple things that I've noticed. Having 3 kids in elementary school. One of the things that I've noticed this year, and it could be that it's because I'm spending more time with the kids and their homework, and my wife's studying and working at night, and some of that other stuff going on. But I've noticed that my kids in particular tend to seem to be more engaged with the subjects and the topics that they're learning in class. With books in particular, they're still reading, Pete the Cat and Nate the Ninja and, small chapter books and things like that. But I'm also seeing them bring home books from the library about topics they're learning about, the how-to books, or why Amelia Earhart or whatever it is, because they're learning about these people and they want to learn more about them. And they're asking, are there, YouTube videos or ththese other things that we can watch to learn more about what it is that we're talking about in class. And so I'm seeing more of a trend, like I said, with my kids in particular, with the engagement around the topic and the subjects that they're learning. It's not just I'm going to classroom and sitting there and the teacher's talking, I'm reading a book and I'm taking a test. It's I'm learning about what it is that I'm learning, and I'm taking that home with me. And I've got a desire and a drive to learn more. And part of that may be because of the STEM curriculum and some of the other things that are going on across a lot of our elementary schools. But I think that's just an example of some of the things that I'm seeing as we're kind of transitioning how our teachers teach and the tools that we're providing to them. The other thing I wanted to mention was, as I was listening to Ms. Andrews ask your questions and your answers in regards to the curriculum and the other thing, one of the things that I've appreciated, especially over the last couple of years, is it seems that it would be really easy in a school system with 30,000 students as big as we are to be really focused on top-down leadership, where you make a decision and you say this is what it is, and if you don't like it, suck it up or go somewhere else. But I'm seeing a lot of collaborative leadership where we're trying to work with the stakeholders, whether it be the parents or the teachers, the administrators. And when we're seeing challenges like with the grades, it's not that we're saying, okay, there's nothing we can do about it, just suffer through this year and then we'll talk about it and maybe do something. We're trying to make those changes as quickly as possible, not to make it easier on our teachers, but to give them more opportunities to teach and focus on what their passion is. And so I think those two things together, we're making a lot of strides, and I feel like that, the focus, especially on the elementary level, I think we're going to see a lot of payoff down the road in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, as these kids transition into, middle school and high school, and, whether it be the ACT test or the other, standardized testing that they're required to take, it takes time to see those improvements, and every little bit helps. But I think we're going to start seeing bigger jumps because our students are going to school to learn and enjoying it, as opposed to just showing up because, I've got to get on the bus every morning, and, if I don't, some big guy's going to come and tell me I have to go to school. So I appreciate what's going on and the direction that we're going, for your team and Dr. Phillips' leadership and all the other departments that are involved in the process.
And I would say, I mean, that's the vision that Dr. Phillips has cast from the moment he's been in the district. And it's been a joy, because I think where we are now, as opposed to maybe when I started in administration, is, I mean, I think we've got amazing teachers, we've got amazing leaders, and they get after it. It's like all we have to do is provide them the resources, and then provide them guidance and support, and they're ready to take it and run. And it's really, I think the exciting thing is, I think, we're a large school district, but we're built around small communities, and everybody knows each other, and we work well together. And I think it's exciting to see the culture that we've created, because, I can tell you can go to other places and you can see where school boards are fighting with the directors or the principals and everything, but the biggest thing that happens is we all just all roll up our sleeves and work together. And I think that's the biggest celebration that we get, because when we do that, then we get to see, like, I mean, it's exciting when you go to the schools and you see a kid jazzed up about Galileo, or, that's exciting to me, or, or Elvis, or, Dolly Parton. The fact that we had Dolly Parton record a message and send it to H.P. Williams is pretty fire. Or giant squids. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, and I think, and I agree with that, with the vision that Dr. Phillips has brought, and that's one of the things that we liked when we first sat down and interviewed him. But it's also, I think, part of as we've transitioned leadership at a lot of these schools, we've got leaders that are now willing to let our teachers teach and try new things and decorate their classrooms, and even if it's for a week or 2 weeks, hang stuff and act out characters and all these things that, when I was growing up, is you go and you stare at the chalkboard and you watch people write numbers or letters on the board, and then you write it down and hope you remember it. But it's the style of learning that I'm seeing now, and like I said, the teachers, I feel like, even though there are challenges and things that we'd like to see improved, from the pictures that you're putting out there on Facebook and your team's documenting, to show off all the things that we're doing, it's amazing the creativity some of these teachers have. And the fact that they're allowed to use that creativity to connect with their students is, I think, one of the things that really separates our district from the other districts, in this state. So thank you.
Scott and his team have done a tremendous job. I think he mentioned something that I think is happening in the system. Scott and I talked about when he came on board about making sure that we set up processes and that we were very intentional about making sure we listened. We got feedback from the teachers, people that are doing the work, teachers and principals. And really, collectively, we need to figure out how to assign and allocate resources and do things at a 30,000-foot view level that takes all of those things into consideration, kind of like you're talking about. And I think with all of the things Scott has set up in his department, Christy and Philip have been a big part of that, you're seeing that. When I go out to the building, I was in 2 today, and when I talk to principals and visit classrooms and talk to teachers, I think they really, and this may just be me, but I really think they know that we genuinely want to know. And they tell me. They don't hold back. I mean, they tell you. Because I think they feel like we're going to listen and it's going to make a difference. We're going to, get them better resources, or we're going to tweak the report card, or we're going to do what's necessary based on the feedback to make us all better. And I think that's something that I think is really in the system is a really strong thing. It's a good thing. It's a culture that's out there. Our principals and our teachers, I think, are part of making us continue to do that, and I feel good about it. I can just tell you the conversations that we have today in principal meetings and when principals visit other principals to go and observe and use the IPG tool or whatever we're doing, it is unbelievable the quality of that conversation about instruction and how to do things better for kiddos. It's unbelievable compared to even 5 years ago. And I'm telling you, you go around to a lot of school districts and that will not happen. Good school districts, you will not get that. It is, you have to be a very, very, very strong instructional leader to get to the front here. And that's a good thing. That's what we want. And Scott's team's helping to push that and support principals and teachers to make sure that we're doing what we need to do in the classroom. So kudos to Scott and all of his group. I do very little.
We know.
Right.
Ted, you weren't supposed to say that. You're supposed to let that
I
go
tried to
by.
hold back.
I throw him a nice bone, talk about his quiz, and then
You all know you hire really, really, really good people and kind of give them some direction, and then they take it from there. And that's what Scott and his team, they're doing a great job.
Any further discussion on the textbook adoption committee? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion since we don't have one. Most approved by
Second.
Mr. Wilkerson, and I'll take a second by Ms. Brown. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding bids for the Westmoreland High School Field House. Is there?
You reject all this.
Motion to reject. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Bachman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding a revision to policy GBK, suspension and dismissal of personnel, up on first reading. Motion approved by Mr. Daniels. Second by Ms. Hayes. Any discussion?
All of these will be back in January
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
for the study session.
So all of these are revisions that we're running through to update to current practice. So the next 4 of these are all same song, second verse, just updating current practice.
Okay.
I have a question.
Ms. Andrews.
On this particular policy, the highlighted part says if it's in the opinion of the if in the opinion of the board it warrants dismissal. We typically don't hire and fire personnel and so forth. So why is that worded as far as?
It's only based on the law. If it's a tenured person
Okay.
that I have to bring up on charges, which we fortunately haven't had to do that. If there were things there, those people might have retired or they may have decided to resign. But if the case did occur where there's a tenured employee that I have to bring up to the board, it's
Okay.
very specific by TCA how we
Okay.
have to do that.
I was just curious why.
I hope that never happens.
Me too.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, discussion and interaction regarding revision to policy GCAA, classified personnel compensation guide, upon first reading. Is there a motion? Motion approved by Ms. Bachman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, discussion and or action regarding a revision to policy GBA, compensation guides and contracts for certified personnel, up on first reading. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, discussion and interaction regarding revision to policy GBRHBA, sick leave bank, upon first reading.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Wise,
Second.
second by Ms. Hayes. Any discussion? Ms. Andrews?
Can someone explain to me exactly what that is?
Sick leave bank is a mechanism that teachers in open enrollment or staff can sign up for, and you donate sick days And then if you have an illness that qualifies, and the sick leave bank committee approves you, you can draw days if you have exhausted your days, sick leave days. So we will see that. We've had more people in the past 3 years. We've had more employees that have chosen to be a part of the sick leave bank. We have a committee that meets, and monthly you will have individuals that have exhausted their sick leave days. Typically, it's an illness that it is a longer term illness. And we see lots of, it's not for the flu.
Right,
It's
right.
for significant cancer. Things that
This
you're.
is separate though from like where they continuously accumulate their sick
Yes.
days.
Does this
So
language
is
make
like-
it stronger?
Totally separate. And this, do
Okay.
what?
Does the language of this make it better, stronger?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just current practice, yeah. Yeah. This is not changing anything for the employees from what they actually do now. We do
Okay,
now.
I just
Yeah.
was not aware
But,
that was.
long story
something-
short is, if they exhaust all the days and they're a part of the sick leave bank, then we would allocate them days to make their payroll whole instead of going to AWOP status.
And this is different than like FMLA.
Yeah,
and all
totally
that,
separate,
okay.
yeah, totally separate, yeah. And it's a voluntary thing, you do not have to be a member. You can sign up for it in open enrollment any year.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, discussion and interaction regarding amendments to the federal budget. Is there a motion? Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Ms. Brown. Any discussion?
Which one are we doing?
General purpose.
General purpose. Seeing none, no discussion, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of study session items. Anybody got anything you want on there as we speak?
Wait,
Uh,
we skipped one.
I just did that to see if y'all was watching. Y'all did good, that's good. So discussion and interaction regarding amendments to the federal budget.
Motion for
Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Now on discussion of study session items.
We'll have those appearances of the policies, and then I think we've got some instruction things that we're going to present. And then next study session is January 7th. AP Scholars, is that on the study session? Yeah, AP Scholars will be on the study session in January.
I think we normally we do cake and everything at 5, and then we honor them right at 6. Mhm. No.
Scott, when is, I'm sorry, this just hit my mind. December graduation.
December 16th at 6 p.m. at Ball State. Christy, is that in the auditorium?
Ball State Auditorium, December 16th. Mid-year graduation. All of the principals will be there. We've got everything lined up. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Brad Reiner, who took the bull by the horns and really helped us get that worked out. This is the first one, so you may want to come, because there'll be kiddos from every one of the schools there. And I don't know how many we have, Christy. How many did we gave them a choice this first year because it's new, whether they wanted to do mid-year or May. And so we wound up with what, maybe 40, 50?
Around 40 or 50, yeah.
40,
That's
50
good.
that wanted to do the December, but not the May. And so you'll have others that will be wanting to do the May. Just, we left it open for them to decide. In future years, we may decide that because it's gonna be a yearly thing, that if you graduate in December, then we may not let you do May. But we'll make that decision later on.
Ms. Hayes, you have a question?
Oh, on the speaker, Natalie Wexler. May we attend that? And will you keep us posted?
Absolutely. We'd
Thank
love for you to.
The
Thank y'all for
31st.
that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank all the people involved with the early graduation ceremony. I've had a number of parents reach out to me specifically asking for that because one particular had a student that was going to join the military
and would not be here in May. So it's very special for that family to be able to have a true graduation for their child. And again, many thanks for making that happen. Thank you.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be neat to see all the schools represented in one place. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be neat, and all the principals there. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a really neat thing.
All right, next item, communication
Hey,
report. I'm sorry, Ms. Brown.
I just wanted to voice the same opinion because my daughter was not allowed to walk in any graduation when she graduated early. Then she wound up graduating from college midterm and she had a job and had to leave. So she says, I've never done a graduation. And I said, well, and then I had a grandson.
Absolutely, across the state. Special.
But then my grandson didn't walk because he graduated early. So it's just, I think these people, graduation is a big step for a lot of them, especially in this area. You know, we've got to still have a lot of kids that they're the first or second one to graduate in a family. And it's just such a big deal. Wasn't necessarily in our case, but it is to many, and it should be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Next item is comments from board members. Ms. Hayes, would you like to start off?
Thank you, Chairman Brewer. Just quickly on the curriculum report tonight, instruction, a lot of words were just keywords to me of the culture that has been building in this community, in our school district, the culture of, and I saw it on the wall in the little video, work hard and stay kind, stop, collaborate, and listen. You know, we just don't put those words out there and tell the teachers to do it. It's from the top down. It's done here. You all are doing a great job of listening, because what I hear from teachers when I'm in the schools in District 1 is that there is more freedom. They feel safe to share their problems, their concerns, the overload of just the weightiness of the extra labor in the report. You all are listening, and they're seeing evidence that you're listening because you're doing something about it and you're making a change. I think that listening is so important. The principal meetings, they feel like they can say what they need to say, and they're not going to be ostracized. So there's a safe community that has been built here, because the goal is to see every one of these kids become productive members of society, to take that next step, whether it's college, through our CTE program, the different pathways that our kids have now. Yeah, when I think about the 5 years I've been on the board, there has been a lot of working hard and staying kind to one another, but we're about working really hard, and it's for the success of each of these kids. The excitement in the classrooms, the engagement of the student is like I have never seen it before. It's very exciting. So we just need to keep doing what we're doing, providing them the tools they need to have, the funding that we need to have to do what we do, and to do it with great excellence. So I thank you. There is a quote, one of my favorite, by Ronald Reagan, and it makes me think of everyone I see here tonight, our teachers, our leaders, our administrators in our school. He said that there is no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. And we don't care who gets the credit. Nobody on this board tries to outshine, stand up in the grandstand and be the big deal. No, we keep our eye on the prize, and that's our kids. And we have a culture where we work well together and collaborate. And that's a great Merry Christmas gift to me. I'm, like I've said before, I'm very grateful. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Ms. Bachman?
I think I echo what you said. You said it beautifully. I agree with everything that you said. I want to step back just a little bit for the TSBA School Board Convention. Scott and Chase came and did a presentation on our STEM program, and they received wonderful, wonderful reviews. Great critiques, the evaluations. You got the copy of the evaluations. So I want to thank you for presenting that to the at the convention. It was very well received, and I want to thank you, Ms. Brown, for helping me. I was a moderator, and she helped me with the evaluation sheets. But and thank you for the presentation tonight. Very exciting about what you're doing. So thank you. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and take care, and I'll see you after the first of the year.
Thank you, Ms. Bachman. Ms. Andrews?
Yes, just a reminder again, I was going to say about Hunter on Monday at 11. Mr. Raymond, I think, is excited for us to come. I'm excited for us to see Hunter. He's got a great school there, and so I'm sure he's got some great things planned for us. Let me check my calendar. I know I went to Jean Brown's performance of Annie and was awesome. And then Beach High School did soft soap, and it was really fun. Do that, and then I plan on going into White House this weekend. My girls and I are looking forward to going to that. Lots of obviously Christmas activities that various schools are doing. I think Jean Brown's doing a breakfast with Santa, and Merrill Hyde's got. If you're looking to get in the Christmas spirit, there's a group that's going to be performing They're actually going to be performing at Long Hollow Student Building this Friday night. It's a parent of a Merrill Hyde student that are fabulous singers, and so they're going to do an a cappella Christmas. So you can go through Merrill Hyde and order tickets for that. See, I think that's all we've got going on. We've got basketball games and so forth hitting right now. So Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope everyone's safe, and hopefully we get some snow.
No, no.
And I'd like to say thank you to Andy Brown for turning the heat up.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Duncan?
I really had to do that for Amanda.
I'd like to take just a moment to invite everybody out for Gillisville tree lighting on Friday. We also have a parade on Saturday at 4. We have a group of 5 Grand Marshals this year instead of just one. All the Grand Marshals are local. All the Grand Marshals are special to our community. So again, just want to take the opportunity to push Gillisville front and center in this holiday season, and I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Mr. Daniels?
I just think it's been a great start to the year as we're kind of moving through the middle of the second 9 weeks into Christmas. A lot of great things have gone on, whether it be athletics, whether it be music, whether it be art. A lot of incredible teaching going on throughout the county, as I mentioned earlier. So it's been a really good start. It's also been a tough year with some of the loss that we've experienced, and I know it's on all our minds, but just in particular, the family of Mr. Hawkins and all they're going through, the last couple days and in the weeks to come. So just prayers for him and his family. And just I appreciate what he brought to the board, the words that he said and the wisdom that he had, and the connection that he had, not just to us but to the community as a whole. I think as we move from Thanksgiving into the Christmas season and a time of remembrance, all those that we've lost this year too. So
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Wise?
Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Ms. Brown?
Are we not meeting in December? What? This is it? Oh, I forgot your candy. I didn't know it was tonight. No wonder everybody's saying Merry Christmas. I'm thinking, I guess I'm the only clueless one here. Well, Merry Christmas. I won't show up next time. I hope not. I just want to say I'm thankful. I'm still into Thanksgiving. I haven't thought about Christmas. I am thankful that we live in a country that will allow us to do what we've done. And we finally bridged that thing where we're getting on the road where we should be, because a lot of individual teachers have been doing it, but it's hard with all the requirements from the state trying to meet those and yet use their free expression in the classroom to engage the kids. And we're finally, the curriculum is upped so much. It's so much better than it used to be. And yeah, I think it's great that we're in tune with it and know what's good and what isn't and what we should do. So I'm really thankful for you doing all that for us, because I would hate to have to wade through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Gregory.
I'd like to also just the same thing that Mr. Daniels said about Mr. Hawkins. The last news I received, it was not what we'd like to hear. And Merry Christmas to all of you. To all good night. And Happy New Year. A lot of ball games to watch.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Wilkerson.
Just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And again, let's keep Jim and his family in our prayers.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. I'll close out with saying thank you to for the presentation tonight. And the thing that excites me about it is you guys being so excited about it. When you're excited about it, it runs downhill to every kid that sees it. When you're, it's just I'm just in awe with you guys. It's just great. Merry Christmas to everyone, and to all a good night, as Mr. Gregory said, and Happy New Year, and everybody be careful and be safe.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So I won't be